Hey everyone, welcome to the porch, the people, and the pen, where we share real stories about real people and the real lives they lived. I'm so very glad you're here. Today's story is about an old grease can, recycled grease, and two fires. One that scattered us for a season and one that scattered us forever. Is there an object from your grandma's kitchen that holds an unforgettable story? We all have something from our grandma's kitchen that we remember in our mind's eye. We can still see the pictures on the wall of MLK and the President John F. Kennedy side by side, or smell like the smell of celery being chopped up in the kitchen, preparing for potato salad. Or we can hear the noise of family talking, the screams, the scraping in the bowl. For some of us, it could be just a cast iron skillet that sat on the stove. For others, it's a chipped plate. For me, it was a grease can. For you, it may be something else like a water pitcher or a special wooden spatula or double boiler. Today, I want to tell you about the grease can, about what my grandma saved and reused, about the house fire that scattered us all, and about the real fire that came later, the one that destroyed what she spent her whole life building. Every grandma had one. At least when I was growing up, every grandma had a grease can in her kitchen. They recycled the bacon grease, even the fish grease and the chicken grease. Nothing went to waste. There was a strainer on the top inside that grease can that was made especially for catching the crumbs so that the grease would be clean enough to reuse to cook with. They spooned that grease into hot pans to scramble eggs. They spooned it to fry fish, to flavor cabbage and other greens and field peas. Waste not, won't not. That was their motto. That's what they said anyway. But sometimes what we refuse to throw away becomes the very thing that burns us. And sometimes the fire is just a warning of what's to come. That grease can sat on the right side of the stove in my grandma's kitchen. It was a dented old dull semi-shiny silver tin. It was never far away. My grandma used it all the time, spooning out grease to cook with, pouring hot grease in after frying bacon or chicken or fish, all of it mixed together. Old, dirty, recycled oils. Ugh, but that's what gave the food its flavor. That's what made everything taste like home. I remember the sound of the sizzle that the grease made when it hit the hot black cast iron skillet in my grandma's kitchen. The loud splashing sound of heat meeting a hot pan. The smell, sharp, rancid sometimes, but it was familiar. That smell meant she was cooking, and it meant we were about to eat. She recycled everything. Nothing was wasted in her kitchen. Bacon grease became the base for eggs. Grease flavored our greens on Sundays, and chicken grease went into cornbread or biscuits. It was resourcefulness. It was how we survived. It was making do with what you had and finding another use for what others would throw away. The strainer caught the crumbs, so the grease was clean, or clean enough. But one day, that grease caught fire. We were young, 7 or 8 years old. We had just taken a bath in the tub using the lye soap made by my great aunt Cicely. Our PJs were our white undershirts and white undies. We were clean and ready for bed and in deep sleep. I hear my grandma scream, "Wake up! Wake up! Get up! Get up! Get out the house! The kitchen is on fire!" I remember being rushed out of the house. I remember standing on that patch of dirt where grass didn't grow, the same patch where we always took our family pictures under the dogwood tree. We stood there in our white underwear, waiting, watching. The fire truck came with this loud noise, and people were standing around on the corner of the street that I grew up on. The firemen went inside. My grandma had tried to put the fire out with water. She didn't know. Water on a grease fire makes it spread. She should have used flour, but she didn't know that either. She did what she thought was right. She did what made sense. But grease fires, they don't follow the rules of regular fires. No one was hurt, but the house wasn't livable. We had to scatter. Some of us stayed at my auntie's house. Her husband, who lived with us, went to his parents' house, little house down a rocky road that sat off the main street. Some went to our great Aunt Retha's house. We were all scattered in different places and pieces, like we are now. We were gone for a season. But here's what you need to understand about that house on the corner of George and Cotton. We didn't own it. My grandma was a trained housekeeper. The company lawyer she worked for bought that old wooden house with the big porch, and he gave it to her as long as she lived or he lived, with one condition. She had to work for his family every Saturday, every holiday, in uniform. When they went on vacation, she traveled too. She handled their home so his wife could handle their legacy while he handled company business. She also worked at the tobacco factory from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and brought home $135 a week to make sure her children had a place to call home. A woman does what she has to do for her family when the men are missing or don't show up. So when the fire happened, it became an opportunity for them to remodel the house, to update what had always been old plaster walls, no central heat, just a wood stove heater in one room. While we scattered, they worked. And when we came back, the house was new. Wood panel walls, the original hardwood floors remained, central heat, the outside was bricked with the leftover bricks from AC Monk Factory. It felt like home, just new, real special. The grease can survived the fire. My grandmother kept using it. She kept cooking and she kept giving. Because that house on the corner of George and Cotton became a second chance for a lot of people over the years. It didn't just shelter us, it contained our secrets and our fights. It gave some a chance to change their lives. My grandmother did that. She opened that house. She shared the food from her kitchen to people who had nothing. She fed them. She nurtured them. She talked to them. She gave them a place to belong. But sometimes it all goes up in flame, like in the movie Soul Food. After Big Mama dies and the family is arguing in the kitchen that nurtured and fed and gathered everyone together, and the kitchen catches on fire. The scripture says, "Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself will not stand." Matthew 12 and 25. Little did I know, way back then, as a child, that the grease fire started so long ago that was hard to put out and burned long past the night, even after the firefighter had extinguished it, after my grandma tried to put it out with water. After she died, the same lawyer who bought that house for her, including her children and grandchildren, offered to sell it to the family for $20,000. At least that's what my sibling shared with me after she was laid to rest. $20,000 for the house that sheltered generations, for the house that gave second chances, for the house on the corner of George and Cotton, where she sacrificed her entire life working as a trained housekeeper in uniform every Saturday and every holiday, traveling on their vacations, working from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the tobacco factory for $135 a week, giving second chances to people who had nothing, keeping the family together. My grandma's oldest said, "I don't want that mess." Imagine that. The fire scattered us temporarily. We came back after the house was remodeled and life went on. But when she died, that was the real fire. The one that scattered the family permanently. The one fueled not by grease, but by selfishness and a mean spirit and an evil and wicked heart. The one where her legacy was called a mess and walked away from. The one that left us in pieces in different places divided. The grease fire revealed the structure: plaster walls, no central heat, dependence on a lawyer's mercy. Her death revealed the hearts. I still see that grease can. Silver, dull, kind of shiny, dented, sitting on the right side of the stove. I still can hear in my mind's eye the sizzle of grease hitting the hot pan. I still smell that sharp, familiar smell of bacon and fish and chicken grease all mixed together, recycled, reused, made into something that fed us. But I also see the fire, both of them. The one that scattered us for a season and brought us back, and the one that scattered us forever because someone looked at what my grandma built with her life and called it a mess. That's the lesson of the grease can. What nourishes can also destroy. What we hold on to can burn us. But the real fire doesn't always come from the stove. Sometimes it comes from a divided house. Sometimes it comes from selfishness and a wicked heart that refuses to see the value in a home that contained a people who had nothing. A house divided against itself cannot stand, and ours didn't. The grease can survived the fire, and the house survived the fire. But the family, we're still scattered in pieces in different places because someone said, "I don't want that mess," and walked away from everything she gave. Until the next time, remember to leave the porch light on because someone is always coming home to memory. Join me next month in the writing room when we continue exploring how our senses unlock stories that we remember. Bring your kitchen memories. Bring the things you held on to too long. Bring the fires you survive and the ones you still try to understand. Together, we'll write our way through the smoke and into the truth.